Good morning. My name's Hugh Lufton. I'm Principal of Lufton and Associates, Chartered Planning Consultancy based in Stafford. This is about the seventh in a series of videos about the planning system, and it's one I maybe should have made some while earlier, but it's about what type of planning application to make. This video is from the applicant's perspective, so I'm looking at this from the point of view of a developer, householder, or another planning applicant choosing which is the most appropriate form of application to make. There are quite a number of different routes to making a planning application. There's about 37 or more types of application now in the English planning system, but I just want to focus on the four major ones, the four major routes, and that's an in-principle application, an outline application, a full planning application, and a householder application. So nothing overly complex in that they don't sound like what they are, but let's start with in-principle. So an in-principle application is a relatively new feature of the planning system. It came in about 2 years ago under statute. It's not one I've widely used. It's one that's finding its feet a little bit. The idea of it is that you can put in a simple in-principle application just based on policy principles. The benefit is you're not required to submit so much technical detail about the site. So, for example, you wouldn't have to submit a flood risk assessment. You're probably unlikely to be required by the local authorities to submit a lot of detailed information about access and provide a transport statement, that kind of thing. So in theory, it's a cheaper way of establishing whether you're likely to be able to get a planning application on a piece of land in the future, say by outline or full route. The downside is it's quite difficult for the planning authority to establish, even in principle, whether they would support, say, residential development, for example, without a lot of technical information. So its usefulness is a little bit reduced. In terms of the fees that are charged by local authorities submitting applications, in principle is only actually a fraction cheaper. So I think it's about 10% cheaper than submitting an outline application. This is based on land area, and that's based on 0.1 hectare units. That's the basic measurement for the cost of a planning application. They're made in 0.1 hectare units. So that's in principle. Outline is a slightly more onerous process. Until 2 years ago, there was outline and full applications were the main applications in the English planning system. Outline is exactly as it sounds. It's an outline application. You don't provide all the detail. So if you're submitting an application for residential again, for example, you would submit a site plan, location plan, etc., probably an indicative layout plan of the residential development, but you wouldn't submit all the detail of the final design of the houses. So it's a simplified process compared to a full planning application, that of course requires something else to be submitted later to provide the detail if you're to go on and develop the site. So that's outline. That again is based on the fees to the local planning authority are based on land area. So 0.1 hectare unit is the basis of the upwards calculation to calculate the planning fee. That's the fee to the local authority. And then we have a full planning application. Now, a full planning application is, as it sounds, all of the detail. Everything that the planning authority would need to know for the application to be approved and for your developer or your builder to go forward and build the site after, of course, seeking to apply for building regulations, a building regulations approval. So I've used to always advise clients to go for a full planning application, and the reason being it's not actually much more expensive than an outline application. And in our experience of going to planning committee, where we've got an outlining application in front of elected members, if it's been a slightly controversial application and gone to planning committee, and the members say, oh well, we can't approve this application because we don't understand what it is. We don't have the detail of the we don't have all the detail. We don't have the detail of what this say again, if it's a residential scheme, we don't have the detail of what the houses look like, so therefore we're not going to approve it. Or they might say we're not going to approve it, we're going to go on a site visit and try and envisage what the development might look like. But on a number of occasions we've had hiccups with outline applications because members have not known, have wanted to know what the final design looks like. Full planning applications are more expensive than outline applications, and using residential again as an example, full planning applications are based on a fee per house, which is currently about £548 or something like that. It's either 536 or 548, can't remember. That's a national planning fee, so it applies across the country. Every planning authority charges the same. The downside of a full planning application, and something that sometimes I have difficulty explaining to clients, is that it's really difficult now in the English planning system to absolutely nail down every detail at full planning application stage. There's almost inevitably things that come up in the application process that hang around and require some form of reserved matter application to be resolved. Recently, that has seemed to involve things like drainage schemes have been particularly difficult to get approved at the full application stage, and they seem too costly to try and get full approval of at that stage, and worth submitting the detail in the future once you've got some level of agreement with the scheme. There are other things as well that have come up. Historic environment's been causing a bit of a problem recently. Certain things to mitigate historic environment features such as archaeological digs, that kind of thing, seem almost inevitably to require some form of reserved matter application anyway. So we've got those three: in principle, outline and full. And then running parallel to those really, and this is different in terms of scale, is a householder application. Now, householder applications are considerably cheaper than other detailed applications, the in principle, outline and full applications, and they're obviously for simpler, less onerous developments. So things like extensions that are above permitted development rights, so require a planning application, in this case a householder application. Therefore, things like garages, conservatories, major works on your patio or something like that, if it goes beyond permitted development rights. Things that you might have on your house, such as solar arrays or renewable energy installations, if they are beyond, again, larger than would be allowed under permitted development. Things like carports, outbuildings in the garden, garden offices that are either larger than allowed under permitted development rights. Household, so all those sort of things covered by householder applications. You're also required to submit a planning application. Again, this is all relates to scale for things like fencing. So fencing that is in excess of what is currently allowed under permitted development rights, which broad rule of thumb is about 1.6 metres in height. Or higher than 1.6 metres in height. Gates, garden walls, anything that is sort of slightly more major structure than will be allowed under permitted development. And if you're looking at householder applications, there's a very helpful guide on the National Planning Portal. The Interactive House gives you a lot of guidance about what is required to be submitted as a planning application, what you're allowed under permitted development rights. And generally, as a consultancy, we steer you towards trying to keep your desires for your house under what's required to make a planning application, because it's a lot simpler to do things under permitted development rights. So sorry this has taken so long to make this video. It should have been one that I made probably about 12 years ago, but never mind. But I hope it's helpful to you. Okay, thanks very much. Bye.